my name's Shade and today we will be going through all the books that I read in March. I am currently using a new camera, so if I seem a little weird, that's probably why. Also, I have new shelves. Look at them. How beautiful. They're not quite ready yet. Not really organized the way I like it. And my bedroom, it goes on the wonk, and so my shelves, they're going on the wonk, and then as soon as my camera's set up, it looks like my shelves are like this and I'm stood like this, and it looks ridiculous. So please ignore that. Okay, let's get into the books that I read in March. I read 7 books in March, which is a little bit less than I read in January. February, I think I read like 12 books in each of those months, but that's still more than I would normally read. I'm still ahead of my Goodreads goal, so let's talk about those books. The first book I read in March was Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. I kept wanting to say Johnson, and I don't know why. Candice Carty-Williams. This is, how would one describe this? Follows a young, I think mid-20s black woman who lives in London, and it's about her experiences of being a black woman who lives in London, and it's about kind of her trying to find love and acceptance with herself. It follows a whole kind of host of topics, really, so it's hard to describe without spoiling things. I read this one for my love story class that I've been taking. I have 2 books that I read in March for that class. I read it in a day. I audiobooked it. It was only like 9 hours, so I read it in a day. The narrator for the audiobook was really great. I really enjoyed her narration of it. I think it's an important read. I think it's good to read from other people's perspectives. This is obviously a perspective that is very different from my own, and I think it touches on a lot of important topics. It's a necessary book. I think there should be more books like this, and I did enjoy it, but it doesn't like stick out to me as like one of the best books I've ever read. I just kind of enjoyed it, and I do recommend it. I do think it's a book a lot of people should read. The way social media is portrayed in this one is quite realistic. That's another thing going for this one. But yeah, I don't have any really strong feelings about it. I think I'd give it like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. It deserves the 8 out of 10. Like I said, I just don't feel really strongly about it. I do think there were some things that might have been handled with a little bit of cliche in the writing. I'm leaning towards giving it more of a 7. The next book I finished was The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. I did a whole video discussing this one, so I'm going to not go into too much detail here. I was going back and forth between what I think about this one for a while, because on the one hand it has a lot of potential and the plot was interesting and gripping, and like I did enjoy reading it, but there were some things about it that frustrated me. In the video I said I would give it an 8 out of 10. I'm wondering if maybe it would be a little bit lower than that. Then I did just finish editing the video where I mostly talk about the things I didn't like about the book. I'm hesitant to give a synopsis as well, because one of the things I enjoyed most about this was the slow burn of learning what's happening here, and I think if you go in with a strong idea of the synopsis, it kind of ruins that for you a little bit. But if you want to know more, I'll link to the video where I discuss this one down below. I do say a little bit more about it there. Yeah, still mixed feelings. I still can't decide what I think. Next, I read Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. I did look it up. This is the last book that I had to read for the love story module that I'm taking. I gave this one to my mum to borrow because she didn't have anything to read, and she really loved it. So I had that in mind going into it, and so I felt a lot of pressure reading this one. I audiobooked this one as well. I read it in like 2 days. Again, the narrator did a good job, and I did enjoy the book, and I do agree it's very clever, very well written. It takes place in a marsh, North Carolina coast, and it takes place roughly between 1952 and 1970, and it's about a girl who, she's quite wild. She lives in the marsh. She doesn't really go into like civilization very often, and so she's kind of not very civilized. We go between 2 different timelines in this one because there's also a murder mystery aspect going on. It's definitely really interesting, and it's very clever the way it's done. The writing's great. The descriptions in the marsh I wasn't obsessed with. I liked them, but there were a couple times where I was like, this is getting on a bit. Again, I liked the slow burn of slowly kind of figuring out what's happening. It's definitely more character driven than plot driven, this one, but kind of like Queenie, I just didn't come away with really strong opinions. But I did enjoy this one. I did really like it. I did get quite invested, and it's very atmospherical. It kind of transports you to this time and place. I think I'd give this one more of a 9 out of 10 because I think I just had more fun with it, and it did leave a little bit more of a lasting impression. Reese, these things, they're killing me. I hate it. So I don't hate it on this one as much as Daisy Jones and the Six, like it blends in a little bit more in this one. I still don't like it though. The next books I read were graphic novels, 2 of them in the same series, I guess, and that's an adaptation on Marcel Proust's In Search of Lost Time. So this is the first one, which is the adaptation of Swans Way. I read these for research for the novel that I'm writing. I'm writing a novel set in 1920s Paris, and this is set, it's a bit earlier than that to be honest, but it was recommended, and the graphic novel was quicker than reading the actual text. I'm not sure if it's in the translation of the graphic novel that we miss a few bits, but some of it did kind of jar a little bit, and I'm not sure if that's the way the original text did it or if there's information left to come. Like some things we talked about, like I still don't know why we talked about them or they weren't resolved. We didn't get conclusions to the stories. I'm assuming it will make sense as it goes along. I think that only the first 2 are out now. I only have the first 2. I haven't found the third one if it's out in the graphic novel form yet. I mean, I did really like the art though. That is one of the things that I enjoyed. I really liked the color palette for it, and I don't know, the cartoony style mixed with the really intense subject matter at times and formal way it's written lightened it up a bit. Classic books turned into graphic novels has been something I've been interested in for a while. They sound like they could be sharper because they cut out a lot of the waffle, I'm assuming. The way they're more visual might break it up a bit, make it a little bit more digestible. So this is my first, I guess, introduction to that, but I've never read the original text, so it's hard for me to say how it does as an adaptation. Like, it obviously is very hard to relate to, and it was quite formal at times. I will continue on with the graphic novels should I find the rest of them. Nothing else, like I said, I'm reading them for research, and also I have questions that I need answered, but I didn't love it or anything. I didn't like have a blast reading it. It was a little bit of a chore. This first one's quite long, like it's 200 pages, which for a big graphic novel is relatively long, and they're quite text heavy as well. I think I would give it somewhere between a 6 and a 7 out of 10. And then, as I before mentioned, I read the second one straight after that, is In the Shadow of Young Girls in Flower.
In the shadow of young girls in flower.
Does that make any sense? Place names, the place. I don't really understand. It's a series of books, but really just one giant book. This one's shorter, so it was much easier to read, and I think I just enjoyed this one more overall. We're in a different setting this one, you can tell from the picture. We're in like more of a seaside setting. I enjoyed mixing it up a bit with that. Yeah. I enjoyed it more than the first one, but I still didn't love it by any means, so maybe like a 7 out of 10 for this one. Next up, I read Scruldario Pleasant Mortal Coil by Derek Landy. This is the 5th book in the Scruldario Pleasant series. I have been rereading this series. When I read this series for the first time, this one kind of really marked a change in this series for me, and I think 4 marked more of a change than I was expecting it to. Things were introduced in 4 that, having read up to book 7, I know are big things, but I do see why I thought that way, and I do still kind of agree. I think the way it's written is a little bit different. This one's a bit longer, and while in all of them we flick to the bad guys, we see the bad guys, and we flick to kind of different perspectives. We're not just always with our main characters. We kind of see bits and bobs going around, but we kind of flick around a lot more in this one, and things seem a lot slower. And while in the beginning of the 4th one we're on a side mission, and it takes a while for things to get into gear, that's really the case for this one. And it turns out I didn't remember quite a lot of stuff that happened in the end of this one, and it's big stuff. And some things I remembered, but they just played out completely differently to how I remembered them playing out. I remember the first time I read it, this one like just gave me all of the emotions, and it was a little bit toned down this time, but I still kind of feel that way. I'm not sure which one I would say is my favourite so far, because rereading the first one was so nostalgic for me, and I don't know if any of them has compared to that one, even though objectively I know that books since that one have been stronger. I think the 3rd one actually kind of stands out to me as well, but I did really enjoy it. Maybe it is because it does raise the bar up a level. Things start happening in this one, and I know from here on out like it does get progressively exciting. So I'm very excited to keep reading this series. I'm having a blast. I'd give this one an 8 out of 10. Again, maybe slightly higher up than the last 8, but it's hard to give them 9s just because they're not blowing my mind, or they're not like insanely clever. I don't think they're reaching that stage yet, so I want to hold it back. And the last book I finished this month was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This blew up when it came out. It was all over BookTube. I finally read it. Maybe somewhat controversially, I didn't like this one as much as Daisy Jones and the Six. Of the 2, Daisy Jones and the Six is definitely my favourite. Daisy Jones and the Six. How many times can I say Daisy Jones and the Six? It's one of my new favourite books. And I really, really enjoyed this one. And the more I read it, the more I liked it. In the beginning I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure about it. The more it went on, the more I grew to like it, and the more I kind of respected how clever it was, how good the writing was. I would give it a 9 out of 10. I do think it's very well done, it's very deserving. I love the historical fiction aspect of it. Synopsis: we follow Monique, who is a reporter in the magazine called Vivant. She's kind of new there, she's not really well respected, and this mega movie star, Evelyn Hugo, says that she will do an interview only with Monique, and so send out Monique and we get Evelyn Hugo's story. We learn about her 7 husbands, about the historical fiction old Hollywood in the 50s, 60s vibe going on. And that was obviously my favourite part of it, hearing her story. The bits with Monique, I could kind of give or take it. Like, I like what happened in the end, but for a while I found them distracting. I audiobooked this one because I heard the audiobook was really great. And in the end, I decided that it was good. They have a narrator from Monique who was good. I don't know if I loved her. I think actually I might have enjoyed this more if I didn't listen to the audiobook. And then they had a different narrator for the person who was reading, like Evelyn, like recalling the story. When Monique was actively talking to Evelyn, it was the narrator for Monique who was reading that out. And so it just kind of didn't sit well in my head. I didn't like it when Six of Crows did it, and I don't like it when they do it. There was also another narrator who kind of read out like the little newspaper clips, and she is a narrator in Daisy Jones and the Six, and I really like her. I do think I would like to look into some of her other works. Maybe In Another Life is one that sounds really interesting, and I know she has a new book coming out this year, so I'll definitely keep her on my radar. I also started another book this month, but I'm not gonna finish it this month, but I do want to quickly mention it since I have been actively reading it the last couple days, and that is House of Earth and Blood, the first book in the Crescent City series by Sarah J Maas. I'm like a good, I've made a dent. I'm 150-ish pages as we speak, but I was literally listening to it, getting ready for this video, and I will hit play again as soon as I stop recording. So I am actively listening to it. The narrator for this one is the same narrator who did the Throne of Glass series, Elizabeth Evans. She's great. It's taken me a second to recalibrate my brain, because when I hear her voice, I associate it with Throne of Glass, although she's also in the Six of Crows audiobooks. Having a lot of fun getting in a new one of Sarah's worlds is really different. I read mostly adult books this month. God Doggy Pleasant and The Knife of Never Letting Go being the only exceptions. The rest were adult books. I'll also talk about the Justice League Zack Snyder cut very quickly because I watched that this month. I definitely preferred it to the original one. I remember having a few complaints with the original one, although I don't remember what they are. This new version did a lot of things better. I think they set up all the characters better. That was my best takeaway, I think. The villain seems like they're setting up for a Thanos type thing. I don't love the jump forward in time. It's really confusing, and I really hope it doesn't come to fruition. I don't know what they're doing with that. And the Green Martian dude. My biggest thing is I don't think it had to be as long as it was. I don't mind sitting and watching a 4-hour film. All the extra content I agree we needed. It's more so the fact that a lot of things took a lot of time to get through. A lot of the scenes were longer, and I don't think they had to be. The women singing as Aquaman sailed away, we didn't have to stay there for as long as we did. So I preferred it, but I still didn't love it, I guess. Lana Del Rey also released a new album this month. That was quite exciting. I love Lana Del Rey. Not sure what I think about the album. Now, I said this with Honeymoon, and then I ended up liking it, and I said it with Norman fucking Rockwell, and I love that album. That was one of my favourites of hers. Very slow, it's very mellow. There are songs in there that I like. I like Chemtrails Over the Country Club, I think that was great. I love Let Me Love You Like a Woman, Dark But Just a Game, and Breaking Up Slowly. That is everything I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome morning, afternoon, evening / night. My name's Shade. I hope I see you again next time. Goodbye! A reporter from a magazine. This is really hard to show you because of how massive it is. I enjoyed reading about Proust, or it's not Proust, is it though? It's supposed to be a fictional character, but is it based on Proust's experience? I googled this. I'm still not sure what the answer is. That is an update. Next, I read Where the Crawdads Sing. Okay, I need to get it together. Dogs are barking. Get out of here.